All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Christine, for having us here tonight. We're excited to be here to get this information out, specifically regarding the Pennsylvania ABLE program. I am Joanna Craney. For those of you who do not know me, I have a financial planning practice called Empowered Financial Strategies, which is primarily focused on helping families navigate their own retirement planning in addition to special needs planning. I am a certified special needs planner. I've navigated um, this type of planning from a sibling perspective and also from a caregiver perspective. I've been around the disability community my whole life. I grew up with two sisters with different disabilities, one with Down syndrome and the second with severe mental health and addiction. And I'm now raising my niece who also has special needs. So I sit on the same side of the table as a lot of you folks, and navigating a lot of these different areas of planning can be really overwhelming. And we really try to take that heavy lifting off of you and just realize that you don't have to do this planning alone. Specifically tonight, obviously, we're going to talk about the PA ABLE program, but just know that this is one piece in the broader scope of special needs planning. And Karen, you want to introduce yourself? Oh, you're on mute.
Sure, sure. Thank you, everyone. Yes, please bear with me tonight because I have been talking a lot and I have a little bit of I may cough from time to time, so forgive me. But I'm Karen Carr. I've worked for the Pennsylvania Treasury now for 16 years, and I'm an outreach specialist there. I am honored to be able to work for the PA ABLE program because for 20 years of my life, early on, I worked with individuals and uh, families who had children with special needs. And it was my honor to do so. I love doing that. I had to be pretty much torn away from that to do other things in my life because I loved it so much. But I was glad to be able to have a different point of view and be able to work with PA ABLE eventually down the road because I do think this answered some needs that a lot of my individuals had and families had that weren't being addressed. So anyway, that's me, my 2 cents. Thank you. And I love working with Christine and Joanna, by the way. It's always my pleasure to work with such wonderful partners who do this great work, really great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get rolling. Thanks, Karen. It is also a pleasure to have this connection with Karen in the Treasury Department. Anytime I have any questions, she's like my first go-to. I'm like, Karen, I have, a specific, more detailed question, and she's always happy to help, which is awesome. So here's our disclosures for this presentation. Everything we do has got to go through compliance, and we have to disclose everything. All right, so what does ABLE stand for? It stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. And this program is actually under the same IRS guidelines as the 529 plan. So sometimes you'll hear 529A being used. And the reason is it's because it has a lot of the same similar characteristics from a tax perspective. This particular program was enacted back in 2014, and it was a way for our individuals who had disabilities that were on certain benefits, a way for them to save and use these dollars to fund expenses without the fear of impacting these very critical benefits that they were depending on, such as SSI and Medicaid. If I'm saying anything during this presentation where you have a question or you would like it clarified, please feel free to either unmute yourself or put something, a little message in the chat. So for tonight's agenda, we are going to run through what is ABLE, who's eligible to use the ABLE program, how do we open and manage the ABLE account, what options do you have for saving versus checking, and the different investment options that are included in the program. how do you contribute to the program, who can contribute, how much, and how can you withdraw the dollars and for what expenses. And then just some additional details at the end and considerations to be mindful of when you're using the ABLE account for expenses. So first and foremost, what is an ABLE account? So this is a tax advantage way for Pennsylvanians. Now, specifically, Pennsylvania has its own ABLE program, but just so you know, if you're in another state, there are programs across the United States. But for tonight's purposes, we're talking about the Pennsylvania program. And if you are a Pennsylvanian, it probably does make sense to use this program because of the state income tax deduction that you would get. So it's a way for individuals with disabilities to and their families to save for different disability-related expenses while maintaining important benefits. And we're going to get to this later, but I don't want you to think of disability-related expenses narrowly. I want you to really think of it in the broad scope of supporting an individual who has a disability. It can be used for a variety of different things, and I feel like sometimes there's this fear that it's restrictive to using these funds for different expenses, and it really is not. It's very broad. These accounts do not count against eligibility for federally means tested benefits, such as SSI, supplemental security income, such as SNAP, certain housing assistance programs, and Medicaid, and more. And these assets are not counted again also too for Pennsylvania health insurance and student financial aid. So again, it's a great way to put dollars into a vehicle if you do have any of these benefits so that you protect your very important government benefits. The PA-ABLE account allows individuals to contribute in the year 2025 up to $19,000. And if individuals are working, they can actually contribute more. And we're going to get to that in the next few slides. There's something called Able to Work program, and it's for individuals who are working who can actually contribute above the $19,000 a year. And these individuals can actually save up to $100,000 without jeopardizing their government benefits. Now, if they're not on SSI, supplemental security income, they can actually save more than $100,000. If the account value does go over $100,000, and they are on SSI, their SSI would be suspended. And at that point, what we would recommend is basically taking dollars out of the account and using it for certain benefits or certain expenses. But SSI would not be terminated, and the medical assistance benefits would continue. As I mentioned, if you're not on SSI, you can actually save more than $500,000. So I mean, that's pretty huge. That's a big benefit, especially for individuals who are trying to manage this $2,000 resource limit. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please either raise your hand or mute yourself and tell me you don't know what I'm talking about as it relates to the $2,000 asset limit. And as I mentioned, these funds can easily be accessed to and be used for a wide range of expenses. And so this is a really important vehicle that we use strategically when we are building out our financial plans with our families. For individuals that are using these accounts, they're not going to pay federal taxes and they're not going to pay Pennsylvania income tax on any of the growth when used for these qualified expenses. So what does that mean? Well, just like the 529 plan, if you make contributions into the plan, the first thing to note is that if you're a Pennsylvania resident and you're using the Pennsylvania ABLE program, you're going to get the state income tax deduction. It's not a lot, but I always say it's something, right? The second thing is any earnings in the account are going to grow tax deferred. And as long as they are qualified expenses, when you take that income out, it's going to be tax free. Anybody can contribute to the ABLE account, meaning that the person with a disability can use their own resources, or family members or friends can also make contributions into the ABLE account. The assets that are inside the Pennsylvania ABLE account are excluded from Pennsylvania inheritance tax. If you are a Pennsylvania resident, you're going to pretty much pay inheritance tax, or I should say your heirs are going to pay inheritance tax on almost everything that you own, except for these ABLE accounts and life insurance. They're also protected from creditors. And just trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to mention in this slide. But these are the majority of the benefits. Now, who's eligible? As it stands right now, disability onset, meaning that your disability have had to occur prior to the age of 26 to be able to use the Pennsylvania ABLE account. However, that is the age-based program is getting expanded to age 46 as of January 1st of 2026. This is pretty huge. I think there was a big realization that there's a lot of veterans that are disabled who may have not become disabled until after their service or during their service. And so this will allow a good amount of people to be able to, who are disabled, to use this program. To be eligible for this program, you know, first eligibility they're going to be looking at is, do you qualify for SSI? Do you qualify for SSDI? Now, not everybody is on these programs. That being said, you can self-certify with a physician's documentation that they meet certain disability standards. So as you go through the online portal and you are filling the online forms out, you are able to self-certify, but just make sure that you have that physician's letter on standby just in case you were ever asked for it. Now, if you're using an ABLE account, you can only have one account nationwide. You cannot have multiple. Like, for example, you can have multiple IRAs. You cannot have multiple ABLE accounts. You can have one account per account owner. And you are able to enroll online at paable.gov, or there are paper applications available. And you can also call the 855 number 529-2253 if you're not able to access the forms online. Now, you are able, let's just say you're in the Washington State ABLE program and you move to Pennsylvania and you see the benefits of enrolling in the Pennsylvania program. You are able to roll over funds from another state's ABLE program into your state of residence ABLE program. So during that process, you might have two ABLE programs, but that's a brief moment in time.
We have two questions in the chat that
Yeah,
seem like they're pertinent to what you just covered. So one was a few slides ago when you were talking about disability related expenses.
Mhm.
Who would we contact to make a determination about needs related distributions?
Yeah, so we're gonna get to that. We're gonna cover some of the expenses in these upcoming slides. I have sat in on a handful of ABLE presentations, and in addition to, I have wonderful contacts at the Treasury, such as Karen, all of who have said that these programs can be used for a broad range of expenses. So let me just give you an example while we're talking about it. If you were to go to the movies and see a show, and the person wants to go into the community and they want to see a show, they want popcorn, so there's food, there's entertainment, and they need assistance to be able to go to the movies. So there's someone that's going with them, there's someone that's driving them. Those expenses can come out of the ABLE account. It's justified, it's getting that person out into the community, right? They can't do it alone. They're paying for food. That is absolutely a need. So all of those expenses are justified. What I am being told is that one, just keep your receipts and accounting. And number two, that the IRS has yet to audit anybody, any one of these ABLE. Not to say that they can't, which is why you keep good records. And the IRS has yet to audit any of these accounts. But we will get to further clarification on expenses.
Thank you. They were also asking about, can anyone who contributes to the ABLE account get a tax deduction for the contribution? Which is similar to the question of, are contributions by others eligible for the PA tax credit?
Yes, if they're a Pennsylvania resident, they can get the state income tax deduction.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Is there any other questions before we move on? No? Okay. All right, now we're going to talk about how do you open up an ABLE account and how do you maintain the account?
And I'll take it from here. Thank you, Joanna.
Right, you're welcome.
I didn't need to answer any of those questions. You know all of the answers. I love it. I love it. That is so great. And you did such a great job explaining the program. Very much appreciated. So let's say you are interested and you want to go ahead and open an ABLE account. The account belongs to the person with the disability. So remember that it belongs to the person with the disability. It's very easy to open. If that person needs assistance, you can certainly, assist them with that. You can do it online. You can send in a check or a money order via payroll deduction. I automatically contribute to someone's ABLE account through UGift, which is within the account. All of those things can happen. It's very easy to contribute, and anybody can make that contribution, such as myself. So all of these things are very possible. You can see that there's a link here for UGift. What happens is when you open an account, PA ABLE account, there'll be a little gift code, and you can send that because people were asking, you're already asking about contributing to this. You can send that code off to someone else. They have their own little account set up, and anytime they want to, they can send money over to the ABLE account. And because I'm a Pennsylvania resident, I can get that deduction off of my state taxes. There's also a way that you can roll over a 529 college and career savings account fund into a PA ABLE account, just like you could roll the Washington State ABLE account into a Pennsylvania State ABLE account. These are tax-free ways to roll funds. Just remember that $19,000 is all that can go in this year if you're going to do that per time, per year, $19,000.
Karen, can I just make a quick
Sure.
distinction on that? So rolling over from one ABLE program to another, no max, right?
Exactly.
Like there's no
That's right.
limitations on
It's
that.
the full amount that can go over.
Right.
Correct. But with a 529, and thank you for clarifying that, it would have to be 19,000 per year, each year till you have used, gone through whatever you had saved in the college savings program. If someone's receiving SSI or SSDI, you can directly deposit those benefits to their ABLE account if they don't have a representative payee. That's important to note. But there are ways to have the representative payee put payments in here as well. So don't be put off by that. You can certainly make that happen as well. It's just not direct deposit. Then the annual contribution, as you can see here, is $19,000 for 2025 from all sources, unless they're working, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And we keep saying, save those receipts.
Yeah. One again, one thing to mention when it comes to, let's just say, there's well-intentioned family or friends that want to make a contribution via U-Gift. You do want to be mindful of the $19,000 limitations.
Yes.
For example, like I would do that towards the end of the year if there's room, meaning that if we haven't used up our $19,000 max, and like, let's just say somebody wants to make a holiday gift, like that might be a good time because we know exactly how much is left for wiggle room for contributions.
That's a great point, Joanna, a really great point. And I love that you're involved in helping people with these because that really guides them and helps them stay on track with these savings and financial plans that we need to have for all of our folks, you know, that we're taking care of. I think that is an absolutely great suggestion to do that because that is the max, the 19,000, unless they're working. So great idea. Really appreciate that. I guess next slide. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so the able to work additions. Thank you. Sorry. So yes, this is what we were talking about next. So being able to contribute above that $19,000, the able account owner can contribute above that annual limit if they are employed, right? And they haven't contributed or they're not contributing to either a 401k or other defined contribution plan, an annuity contract, or a deferred compensation during that tax year. Okay. They can contribute whichever is less, the amount that they earn, right? Or up to the federal poverty level, which brings you to about $34,060 for 2025. So know that this is called the Able to Work Act, and this is something that has really helped people start to grow these funds much more quickly and have that money be available to them much faster over time if they are working it. And we want people to work. So we definitely are very pleased that this exists and that people can use this option if they need to.
Now, the one thing to note that's coming down the pike is we don't know whether the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 is going to be extended or not. This edition of the Able to Work Act was included in that. So if there's no extension, then these additional contributions won't be allowed. If it's extended, then this will continue.
So make those phone calls.
Yeah.
make sure the legislator is going to vote properly for this.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me go over how easy these accounts are to use and what your options are once you open an account. So let's say, you know, you've helped your loved one open this account on their behalf. You're going to have these able investment options to choose from. They range, as you can see here, from aggressive all the way to conservative. I think this is really nice because it's not just a savings plan, it's also an investment option. You're putting your money to work for you, or you have that opportunity to do so. And you can choose from one of these or from all of these. And just last year, we were able to reduce because we have so many people in these plans now signing up for them. We were able to reduce the fees on the portfolios, which is fantastic, right? That's more money in your pocket as you go along, more money for you to earn. And you can move the funds, you can select these funds, but moving the funds among options you can do twice in a calendar year. And at any time, you can add a new option if you haven't selected all of these options. You can add a new one at any time during the year. Just nice to know. We also have a checking option, which I believe is on the next page.
Yeah, and I'm just and I don't know
Go
if
ahead.
I have the updated fees. So if these
It's an older one. I need to get you a new.
Yeah, so it'll look better, folks. It'll look even better.
It will.
Okay, so
I should send you that slide. but you can find that on our website, which is a
Okay,
great place to look. You can
awesome.
find that right on there. It'll give you all those investment options. It'll even tell you how they've performed and all those kinds of things. They're on the website. And I encourage people to take a look at those before making your choices. We also have the checking option, which people do really enjoy this because it comes with, it's with Fifth Third Bank, but it's under our ABLE umbrella and we manage these things. It includes a debit card, right? And that's free with the option, the checking option. And that means when you're out and about, you're at, whatever store you're at, you can use it right there at point of sale, or you can go to a Wawa and pull money out and get cash that way at an ATM. And you can find the partner ATMs and have a zero charge by looking on, it's a funny name for a bank, but it's Fifth Third Bank. And you can look on that website. All that information is on our website for you to find. And I would like you to know that there are fees that you need to be aware of. There's a $2 fee unless you keep a balance in the checking account of $250, then it's waived, or you get electronic statements, right? Either one of those, you're going to waive those fees. And you want to do that as much as possible. No, as you see, overdraft or return payment fees. So all of those are your way to be using these accounts and the way that you can manage them to do your best to meet your needs. So I guess unless you have something else, Joanna, that you wanted to add about this,
No,
I do like to be transparent about all fees, because when you put money in here, just as you put money into any account, you want to know what you're spending your money on and if there are fees related to those. So these accounts are absolutely free to open. Doesn't cost you a penny to do that. Put $10 in if you want to, right? But you want to start making sure you're using it and putting some money in over time, because there will be a quarterly fee that comes out. And I think it's down to $7.75 now quarterly.
okay, all right, fantastic.
I think they just made that change recently. And then that's if you do e-delivery, but it's $14 quarterly if you do postal delivery. So I'll send you that new slide as well. But these are recent changes. That's why you don't know them.
Awesome, thank you.
But as much as we can bring these down, that's exactly what we want to do. And the more people who sign up for this, that gives us the power to do so,
Yep.
which is great. So the next slide, please. If you want to make a withdrawal, very simple to do so online. If you've created your online account, you have your password to get in, and it's very simple to just go in and make an online withdrawal. If you have any issues, we have a telephone number there. You can call us 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. any day, or by phone, you can call us. You can even send us a note in writing and we'll send you the money. And then, of course, if you have the checking option, you can move money into the checking option, if you need to, and you can, or you already have it there, you can use that debit card and you can make that cash withdrawal. Or if you decided to get a check, it's $6 for a book of checks. You can write checks if you need to as well. So all those things are the simple ways to be able to get the money out, just like you would from any other account that you have. It's really quite simple. PA eligible expenses. So this is what Joanna was talking about earlier. These are the things to really pay attention to, because these are things that are everyday. They're not just disability expenses. They're our expenses as everybody pretty much, right? But they are qualified disability expenses. You can pay for education, most of your housing needs out of this, transportation, employment training and support, your legal fees, your health, any kind of prevention and wellness. We talked about going to the movies, right? I think that's a wellness thing. You need to go on vacation. That's a wellness thing. You can pay for those things out of these accounts. Any kind of financial management, which mean if you know you need somebody to help you with those things, if Joanna's going to help you, set up your special needs trust, you can pay for that out of your ABLE account. Correct, Joanna? Right out of there. Your assistive technology, so many people need these things. There are great things that if one person, I do want to talk about this a little bit. Let's say it needs to be something that the person who has the disability needs. So let's say for you, you may have a hearing disorder and you need assistive technology for your ears, right? You need hearing aids or whatever other technology for that, but you don't need a wheelchair. So if you buy a wheelchair, that's not going to be a qualified expense. You don't need it. It's specific to the person who, what kind of disability you may have for those sorts of things. Does that make sense? I hope to people, right? Any kind of expenses for oversight and monitoring, and funeral and burial expenses. You can use it for all of those things. It's really just about everything, your basic living expenses, as it says, and it doesn't have to be medically necessary. Exactly, it doesn't have to be for the sole benefit of that person. You could buy a computer for the household, even if other people are going to use it, but it's benefiting that individual. Those sorts of things are very, broad. And as Joanna said, the IRS hasn't audited anyone yet, but just keep those receipts. And this is important to note when you have an ABLE account. We'd like people to know that the ABLE law permits states to come in and file a claim against the ABLE account for Medicaid that was paid during the time the beneficiary had that ABLE account. But guess what? You're going to see here that PA ABLE law prohibits this. We wrote it into the law here in Pennsylvania. Okay, what happens is once a person turns 55, that's when you want to pay attention to this. Because if a person passes away before the age of 55 and they have the ABLE account, there's nothing that can be done with taking that, with the Department of Human Services coming in and taking any monies back out from medical assistance that were used for medical assistance. But after the person turns 55, if there were monies used by medical assistance monies used for nursing facility services, home and community-based services, related hospital or prescription drug services, then anything that was used after the age of 55, really what happens is all that rolls into the estate. It rolls into the estate just like anything else would. And then they could come back to the estate and potentially claim some of the funds related to those particular things. However, if that person has a spouse, a child under 21, or a disabled child of any age, any kind of repayment would be delayed if they're survived by a spouse, child under 21, or disabled child.
And we would also look at the account balance and say, are there any final expenses that need to be paid?
Absolutely.
Right? Because funerals are not cheap. And
Nope.
so that could be paid out of the ABLE program prior to it getting distributed to the state account.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Or if there were a lot of funds, I imagine they could go into the special needs trust at that point. Is that true, Joanna? Is that how it would work?
No, because
Previous to the age of
so
55.
TA ABLE account is technically the person with the disability. So then we would have to set up a first party special needs trust. And at that point, the person's deceased, so that wouldn't work. And you can't, depending on their age, like you can't set up a first party special needs trust for individuals over 65. So
That's good to know.
yeah,
I
so
didn't
that
even
wouldn't
know
work.
that.
Yeah,
So
but we
that's
would
great
like
to
look
know.
at the account and we were like, okay, is there any bills that need to be paid? Final
Absolutely.
expenses, like before that went out to the estate, we would be making all those kind of calls.
Determinations.
Yeah.
Yes, that's really good to know. I wondered about that with when that could be done. I did not know about the 65, no.
Right, yeah,
first
that's
part.
for first party special needs trust. Third party
Mhm.
can be done at any time.
So if it's the
Okay.
person's own money going into a trust, there's an age restriction.
Yes. Okay. Great. All right. I guess the next slide, if you don't mind, please. So
Yeah,
there we go.
there we go. This is why this is what I say this all the time. Planning really needs to be a team approach, right? There's so many different professionals that are involved that you're probably involved with on a day-to-day basis, whether it be the CPA, your financial advisor, an attorney, and really, supports coordination, people from PA Treasury Department, right? We need to pull all of these different strategies into one cohesive plan, right? Because if we separate them out into silos, what tends to happen is there's gaps, there's inefficiencies, nobody is really seeing the full picture. So that's part of the planning that we do. And when we're using the PA Able account, we're using it strategically, meaning that, for example, if we know that there's an upcoming expense, maybe it's an accessible van, or maybe it's a wheelchair, then we might say, hey, let's fund the PA Able account because we know that we're going to have this expense coming down the pike. We can do it if there's a good amount of money in the Able account. We can set up a bucketing approach like we would do with a retirement strategy, where we're looking at what are the near-term expenses that we know that we have to have liquid over the next year. And then what are some maybe midterm expenses, meaning that in the next like 3 to 5 years, we know that we're going to have to buy whatever it may be, right? And then there's going to be longer term stuff that we probably don't even realize that we're going to need down the road, but we can put it into that longer term category. And that's where the investment strategy really comes into place. A lot of times we're using these Able accounts to protect against the resource limit. So federal law says, if you're on SSI, you can't have more than $2,000 in your name. So how do we get away with having a bucket of money more than $2,000? Well, we're shifting assets from savings account, maybe checking account, over into the Able account to protect these benefits. A lot of our folks are working. So again, if they're working and they're bumping up against that cusp, we're shifting dollars over to the Able account. Spend down needs, again, sometimes people are approaching 18, they're about to file for SSI and they might have money in their name. And so again, if we need a spend down strategy, this will be one of the resources that we use for spend down. And then again, these expenses, like the legal expenses, the special needs planning, financial fees, can all be paid for out of the Able account. So these are just some of the ways that we're using the Pennsylvania Able account in our planning. Our contact information is here if you want to take a snapshot of this. And feel free, we offer complimentary consultations in our practice, and we can walk you through what our process looks like and how we work with families and really designing a cohesive plan that taps into all of these different resources and all of these different strategies. And my one recommendation is, if you are working with someone from the financial perspective or the estate planning perspective, you do really want to make sure that your professional is an expert in special needs planning. If you're asking the question of how many, what percentage of your book of business is primarily focused on special needs planning, I would want to hear at least 70%. Because then the people that you're working with are not dabblers. They really know what they're doing in this space, because it's these little nuances that are really important and critical to the planning that we want to make sure that we don't miss. So are there any questions, any feedback, questions?
I do have some questions in the chat. I'm gonna speak on this one from Bruce, and then you can add anything. So he asks if you have SSDI and Medicare and also Medicaid, does the $2,000 resource limit apply in the way that it does for SSI? So there's not a resource limit for SSDI and for Medicare, but there is a resource limit for Medicaid. The part, as Joanna was saying, like you don't want to be working with a dabbler because the details can trip you up. There's different categories of Medicaid that have different resource limits. So depending on what category you're getting that Medicaid secondary through, it may be a resource limit of $2,000 and it may actually be a higher resource limit. So, but you would have to pay attention to a resource limit if Medicaid is at play. Do you guys want to add anything to that piece?
You said it.
That's perfect. Mhm.
So we had some questions about more about the PA able accounts. So we had two about what happens if there are excess contributions, and is there a mechanism for reducing them?
That's a good question.
So like above that yearly cap, if we act.
Yes, I mean, if they're on SSI, right, you'll have to be careful because you're not going to want to go and put the excess into a bank account, or you're having that Medicaid issue where you'll go over that $2,000 limit, right? So you'll have to be very careful with that. I think this is really, if it were me and I were the parent and I was in that situation, I would really be reaching out to Joanna to say, help me, is there something, was there some big thing that we needed to spend it on, first of all? Or is this something that the special needs trust then would be able to address, or the plan, or to address, or the planning with that? So I want to punt that to you, Joanna, if you don't
Yeah, I
mind.
think, and I have to double check on this. Like I know, for example, if you make excess contributions, meaning that if you made a contribution of 20,000 versus 19,000, right? Like what impact would that have? And as far as Medicaid and SSI, I'm not sure of the answer to that, but essentially what I believe would happen is any earnings on that $1,000, it wouldn't be a qualified, like you're gonna have to take the money out, one, and if it earned money, then there might be a penalty or you might have to pay taxes on those.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. So you want to be careful and keep it at that 19,000 unless they're working. So that is important. Right. But yes, there would be a penalty for going over that amount in terms of the earnings portion of that amount. It wouldn't be on the full amount, right? If you went over by $5,000, it wouldn't be on the full amount. It would be on
The overage.
any overage taxable amount of that, which might be, I don't know, $50.
That's why it's really like important to pay attention.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
We also have a question about, you mentioned a number of ways that an individual can request a distribution from the ABLE account. And the question was, how is the money delivered if it is withdrawn via online, phone, etc.? So I guess they're
Okay,
asking
sure.
the
If you
method.
have set up a bank account within the ABLE account, then, and you make an electronic transfer, just like you would, you make a request to have the money sent to your bank account, you can do that. Or whatever bank accounts, you can list more than one bank account in there. So it could go to any of those bank accounts. You can have a paper check sent to you via the mail. And basically, I think those are the two ways to do that, the paper check or the electronic transfer.
We just want to make sure the timing on this is you're paying attention to the timing, because if you make an electronic transfer from the ABLE account to your bank account and you let the money sit there and you're over the $2,000 limit, that could present a problem. So timing is critical, which is why, if you're able to use the debit card, fantastic. If you're able to pay expenses directly out of the able to a vendor, fantastic, great. So,
Yeah, you want to use that pretty quickly after you transfer it. If it's a significant amount, that would.
like, for example, like housing, like if you have to transfer.
Within the month.
Yeah, right, before the month's end, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a very good point because a lot of times they want you to pay your rent right on the first of the month, but you may ask instead to have that paid, on the 5th of the month or the 7th of the month because you want to take it out and spend it right away to pay
Yep.
for that.
Right.
And it's a very good point. Yes. The money, if you transfer it over, it's available within 3 business days. Just so that you're aware of that, it does get transferred rather quickly. That way, if you're waiting for a paper check, it will be longer. It will be 7 to 10 business days from the time you request it, unless there's a holiday, right?
But it sounds
So
like
just
you're saying, Joanna, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to clarify, if you were concerned about transferring the money into your bank account and then it crossing over into the new month and putting you on over the resource limit, that instead you could request for PA able to send the check or make the transfer directly to the individual or service that you're wanting to pay. Is that accurate?
so you could have the check perhaps sent to them, right? Generally, it comes to the owner, though, with the owner's information. Now, what I think I would do in that particular case is I would have the checking account and I would write the check and have the monies come out that way. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I would have a check that would go to your housing payment each time. I have, that's
I'm just thinking like automatic, let's just say there's, a person's living in a house and, the utility bills, like I'm thinking about all the bills, right?
exactly.
And all like, just like you do your own accounting with your expenses where you can set up auto debits from your account.
Right.
You would be able to set up auto debits from the Able account because technically it's in a bank account. I'm not talking about the investment options because if we would have to like we would have to first liquidate investments to have a cash position, but I'm specifically talking about the checking option inside of the Able account where you can set up automatic withdrawals.
So you
for
can have
expenses.
automatic withdrawals, but it's generally, you'd have to set those up within the account specifically each time for that to be able to transfer to wherever you want it to go to. And from my experience, it has mostly just gone to the individual and then they've paid for it from there. Does that make sense? I
Yeah.
know what you're saying, but that's
Yeah,
basically how it is.
Okay.
Mhm.
We also had a question, if you could reiterate the age limit to open up an Able account.
So right now it is the age limit, meaning you could be 50 and as long as your disability onset occurred prior to the age of 26, you can open the account. But if your onset was 50, you can't open an Able account and use it. That's changing as of January 1st of 2026, and they're expanding the program to disability onset age of 46. So it's not necessarily what age can you open it, it's more of when did your disability occur? That's the
Right.
key factor.
It doesn't matter what age the person is now, or even what age they received their correct diagnosis. As long as their disability began before the age of 26. Does that make sense? And then now that's going to apply next year, the same thing, as long as that disability began before age 46. So exactly what you said, that's just, it applies to any kind of diagnoses, intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, psychological diagnoses, right? It's for everybody. And it could be that a person didn't really start to exhibit the signs of a certain, physical or intellectual disability until they were 30, but actually the disability began before that age. And there may be signs previous to this that really now are exacerbated and showing now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you. Are there any other questions people want to throw out in the chat or verbally? Bruce expresses his gratitude and says it was an excellent presentation. Thank you, Bruce.
Oh, thanks, Bruce.
And thank you
Thank
for
you,
pointing
Bruce.
out it is recorded, so we will send this out to attendees and also post a recording on our website event page. So you can rewatch it as much as you want. We do have another question. I understand that people cannot put money in their own special needs trust. Is that true? So that depends on the type of special needs trust that the individual, that the beneficiary has. So there's two main types of trusts. One is called a first party trust, and that's where it's the individual's own money that's going into the trust. So money they've had in savings, or maybe that they got from a settlement. A third party trust is when it's someone else's money funding the trust for the benefit of the beneficiary, the person with the disability. So whichever type of trust that the individual has, it can only ever receive that type of money in the future. So first party trust can only ever receive the beneficiary's own money, and a third party trust can only ever receive funds from other people who aren't the beneficiary. And if there's any questions about trusts, you guys can feel free to reach out to me as well. And a very nice question about what makes a PA-able account important to have alongside of a trust. So there's a lot of different case scenarios where that can come into play, but one of the main ones is if an individual has a sum of money that is larger than that annual, right now it's $19,000, that annual cap that you can put into a PA-able account. So if you have a sum of money bigger than that, that is going to affect their resources, that's where you have the option to utilize a special needs trust to house that larger sum of money all in one lump sum. But the two can really complement each other nicely. The trusts don't have the disability related expense stipulation. They do have some other rules, but and as we heard, that disability related expense is very, very broad. But the two can work together very nicely. So I'll put my email in the chat. If people have questions about trusts, you can reach out and I'm happy to answer them. Thank you again so much to Karen and Joanna. This was really wonderful and very informative.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure being with everyone tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being
Yes.
here, even though it's nice out. So there's still some sunlight. You can
There
still
is.
go outside and get a nice walk in.
Yes.
Really recommend. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and your attention. And it's great to be a part of this group to be able to help out, because I know how important this is for all of you. Really understand. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.
Have a good
Have a
night.
good night.
Bye.